News, views, voices of the global Indian community. India abroad.
With that, let me thank USRSP for hosting this event as we can announce. This is the 10th such event. We have been celebrating our 40th anniversary around the world. And we had, the first one was held in Geneva, which was kicked off by Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who is the Director General of the WTO. So that was a good start. And the literature, there's a little pamphlet on your table where you will find her comment on this particular issue, what happened. But we have a long-standing partnership with USISP. This is the second such roundtable we are doing. We've done one earlier on innovation, including at New Delhi, and we hope to continue this partnership with USISP, who we admire hugely, particularly the kind of leadership it provides to the dialogue between US and India. I think it's very critical and has been very helpful as well. Now, just a bit of brief on Kutch. We began in 1983 out of a garage. We never imagined that we would be sitting here in Washington at that point of time and talking about US-India defense relationship. We started off as a consumer protection organization, and over time, since the WTO came into being, we've sort of graduated into a public policy outfit and not restricted to consumer protection issues as such. We believe that all policy issues have a consumer welfare outcome, and that is something which we must tweak out and put forward. So globally, we have been able to create a narrative in terms of the impact of policies on consumer welfare, which is so critical. Now, this consumer welfare we speak about is a little different than what is commonly understood in the US in the context of antitrust tactics. Let me leave it at that. Coming to the theme of today's event, the US-India relationship is a defining strategic partnership and an evolving one. In the mid to long term, sustaining a strong, innovative and resilient defense industrial base will be paramount to the security and prosperity of the current world order. Analyzing the US's first ever national defense industrial strategy, the modern defense industrial ecosystem is key to integrated deterrence and building enduring advantages for US national security. Furthermore, this strategy also discusses the need for sustained global partnership and acknowledges that by working together, we and our allies and partners can address capacity and capability gaps, enhance production capacity and capabilities, boost economic advantages, and reinforce alliances. However, this highlights a few challenges for the US, including critical workforce shortages in the area of STEM, science, technology, engineering and mathematics, and advanced manufacturing. Here, as a partner or a friend, like India, which has an abundance of skilled manpower and its youth specializing in STEM-related areas, could potentially address these challenges. As it is, we see a very large number of IITs living and working in the US and having become American citizens after having got educated at the cost of the Indian taxpayer. So we do expect this relationship to go ahead and be cemented. India as a country has immense scientific talents, which is sought by the US and other developed countries to broaden their R&D base and to accelerate their technology development. I'll just give you an example of the kind of the talent which exists in the US coming from Indian technical institutions like the IITs. While it's a developing country moving with the vision of being a developed country by 2047, this has been announced by our Prime Minister, who's quite gung-ho and quite sort of committed to the fact is that we need to become a developed country and to eradicate poverty to the highest extent possible in our country by the year 2047, which is the 100th year after our independence from the British colonial rule. Now, in this context, India looks at the US as a partner for joint innovation and startups. And let me underscore the word joint. Facilities for R&D, technical guidance and mentoring, testing facilities, investments, skilling, jobs and economic benefits, among others. Yeah, let me mention a few steps that have already been taken, and ISET is a step in the right direction, as Megan also pointed out in her opening remarks, with the potential for a quantum leap in the US-India relationship. I would like to reiterate Jake Sullivan's statement at the launch of ISET. He said, ISET is much more than technology cooperation, it's a platform to accelerate our strategic convergence and policy alignment. The initiatives under the ISET pillar are now substantially complementing defense and security as the vital pivot of India's ties with the US. And the success of it was evident during the midterm review held at the level of the Deputy National Security Advisors in early December of 2023. The two sides agreed to include biotechnology, critical minerals, and rare earth processing technologies, digital connectivity, digital public infrastructure, and advanced materials. So the scope has been expanded to cover many other sensitive areas. This shows and underscores the degree of cooperation and trust in the long way that we have come. I agree that the aim of India-US technology cooperation is to harness talent, accelerate technology advancements, and broaden the innovation base through co-research and co-development, making its supply chains resilient with an overall intent to strengthen the multifaceted strategic partnership. It's an opportune moment for our relationship, but it's taken a while to build this relationship. From buying no defense equipment to gradually buying equipment and now moving towards changing the norms and regulations that apply to India, gives it the status of one of US's closest friends. For instance, the deal for the General Electric 414 jet engines to be manufactured in India at Hindustan Aeronautics Limited is a great step forward. Having said that, the technical areas have become one of the biggest growth areas of this partnership, as well as with climate change and clean energy, along with higher education exchanges and science research, from space issues to cybersecurity to plurilaterals such as Quad and the IPEF, the Indo-Pacific Economic Forum. Now, India needs to develop its defense and civil industrial base if it is looking to capitalize on the shift away from China as companies diversify their global supply chains, and it should do so fast before the window of opportunity closes. We are already competing against countries like Vietnam, etc., in attracting this kind of investment. I agree that technology cooperation is the bedrock for building strategic partnerships, but there are immense challenges and discussions such as this one is one such effort to find and address these. To mention one, the challenges posed by the US export control regimes, such as the International Traffic in Arms Regulation and the Export Administration Regulations. They require a little more imaginative solutions than what exists, so that there is a speedier advancement in the kind of collaboration or partnership we think can be forged between Indian enterprises and the US enterprises. Mind you, 10 years ago I would not have been able to say this, but today the industrial atmosphere in India is extremely booming, extremely gung-ho. Especially the government has addressed the ease of doing business in a big way, which has helped to move forward, including address many other issues in order to see that the entrepreneurial spirit of the entrepreneurs is boosted, and that is what we see happening. For example, surprisingly, even to the pundits in India, the last quarter we had a growth of 7.4%, which is just unimaginable. So we expect that the growth will continue at those kind of high levels. Lastly, we do hope that the US and India can cooperate in promoting democracy and bridging North-South development. This is again a crucial multilateral issue where US and India have a responsibility to the world. One such steps would be assisting African countries and a trilateral development cooperation model with the participation of the civil society, business chambers, academia, for the various issues which can help them to grow and reduce poverty, as most of the African countries are now suffering from a huge debt due to the conditionalities imposed by China, which has invested large amounts through loans in African infrastructure. So this is a kind of an issue which India and US should deal with, because there is a very dirty hand, I would say, China, the way it has been happening. We've been operating. Current Cuts has been working in Africa since the last 30 years. Our first office was established in Lusaka, which is an LDC, Zambia, and which is covering Southern Africa, then Accra and Nairobi. So we cover the whole of Sub-Saharan Africa, and so we have first-hand information about what is happening there. And particularly the kind of Chinese foray is something which is something for us to be worried about as an international issue and not just a regional issue. And I think both US and India are very committed to Africa, as we see. But this is one area which requires special attention. On a similar note, the Quad also carries certain areas of strategic ties. One is sharing information on maritime domain awareness. Second is to work together on critical and emerging technologies and building resilient supply chains. And also critical minerals. Now there's a need to look at creating this alternative technological framework where we can work together in the areas of frontier technology, which does provide a strategic element, and then there is the economic framework which has been launched that provides inter-country convergence. I'm optimistic about this partnership, and we are only becoming stronger, but this does not mean that we will not have differences and divergent solutions, but our actions should meet our vision. As has been stated by the Indian government again and again, that we have our own strategic autonomy, a thing which we'll follow, which suits us the best in our own interest. And I mean, all countries do work in self-interest, so let's not be, that it should not be expected from the US that we'll toe the lines in every which way possible. We'll have our own thinking about many of these things. So we'll be friends, not allies, as such, in many of these efforts. We do see there are some knee-jerk reactions in the geopolitical cloud. For instance, the recent outbreak of serious hostilities in West Asia. It threatens to derail the initiatives like the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. However, now is the right time for both countries to navigate through such issues and collaborate on more subjects that undercut such issues, and join hands by cooperating on technology and intelligence gathering, military training, and counter-terrorism, among others. Thank you very much. Let me end here.
And sort of reflect, I think, just the incredible amount of progress that's made, not just in the last 2 years, but even the last 12 months. And I think that just sort of underscores the degree to which there's incredible sort of momentum, and the relationship, I think, now is defined more by the pace and the sort of overall trajectory, rather than by differences and divergences in key issues. And in many important respects, the overall paradigm of the relationship, I think, has changed, particularly from the perspective of the Department of Defense, where I think historically security and defense cooperation has traditionally been viewed as an area that's sort of too sensitive or traditionally lags other areas of cooperation. In many important respects, some of the work that we're doing between the defense establishments is sort of charting the course and leading other facets of the bilateral relationship. So I thought today, at the top, I just kind of provide a few highlights, because I think for observers of the US-India relationship from the outside, particularly from outside the government, and I think to some extent even within the various sort of stovepipes and bureaucratic agencies in the government, there are just a lot of hesitations, or I think there's sometimes difficulty keeping up with the pace and growing scope of this partnership. And so I think there are kind of three important areas where there have been some notable, I think, landmarks, which in each one of these, if you were to ask a close sort of observer of the relationship, maybe a couple years ago, oh, do you think this will happen? Like, no, it's too difficult, too sensitive. We'll never kind of break through the log jams that have historically kind of held us back. The first, of course, is technology cooperation, as Pradeep and Megan sort of both noted. Long sort of source of disappointment and friction in the bilateral relationship. And I can just say, as recently as a few years ago, in official sort of engagements, there was a lot of sort of time that would be spent talking about sort of the problems and the difficulties that we had addressing the issues that prevented us from collaborating closer in the technology domain. But over the last 12, 14 months or so, the administration has put a real sharp focus on establishing a sort of mutually reinforcing technology partnership. And of course, the ISET dialogue is the sort of overall framework within which a lot of that work has been done. At the Defense Department, we established a new roadmap for defense industrial cooperation. What that has done is provided a faster track process for advancing joint production projects to deliver key capabilities for the Indian military. We've also supported the roadmap by providing more expansive approvals for licenses that U.S. companies seek to be able to collaborate with Indian counterparts. And then finally, under the Indus-X initiative, there's been a concerted effort to sort of promote partnerships between defense startups, investors, academic researchers, to basically look at the sort of subcomponents that make up our defense ecosystems and find a way to integrate them in a way that delivers innovation and an advantage to our security establishments. Another area that I think for people who have watched this relationship over the decades, where there's been sort of tremendous upward momentum, has been in the area of operational sort of engagements between our militaries. And I think, for observers of India, it would have been unusual, maybe 14, 15 months ago even, to contemplate scenarios where, outside of a UN context, Indian security forces would have felt comfortable operating in coalition-type arrangements. And so a couple of recent instances, at the last 2+2 ministerial, India formally agreed to join the Combined Maritime Forces that's headquartered in Bahrain, which is an important step that brings sort of India into that group of like-minded countries that are committed and working every day to keep sea lanes open from threats of piracy, terrorism, and other threats to maritime security. Outside of the sort of formal sort of coalition format, last summer, the U.S. and Indian navies jointly deployed their P-8 aircraft to conduct maritime security activities in the Indian Ocean, and the sort of scope and complexity of those engagements just continues to grow. That's another sort of vignette that maybe even 6 months ago we were lucky to be able to conduct or execute one of these exchanges, and in the months then those just have become more regular and frequent in tempo. And I think that the sort of final area of growth in the partnership has been in the sort of the scope and texture of our high-level bilateral engagements. And I think, at least from the outside, I think it's apparent that there's just a very high frequency of engagements between our senior leaders, from the President, Prime Minister, our national security advisors, and cabinet officials. It'd be hard to find a month in the calendar year when there's not a high-level exchange, and then probably at least a handful of mid-level exchanges between our governments. But just the existence or occurrence of meetings isn't sufficient. I think for those of us who work inside the system, I think what's notable is that the depth of issues, the range of topics that were heretofore sort of considered sort of a little bit too sensitive, or that reflected that a lack of discomfort talking about, those have now become sort of relatively normal and routine. And we've also established a series of bespoke dialogues to cover a range of issues on everything from export controls and tech security to opportunities for collaborating in areas like the Indian Ocean and the broader Indo-Pacific. So I think in closing, I just want to underscore that we're at this sort of critical juncture where momentum and convergence, I think, is defining what this partnership is about. And it, I think, provides me a sense of optimism, which I think you touched on rightly, Pradeep, about where this relationship goes in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our partnership with India is one of the most consequential relationships we have in the world. we see this strategic partnership as a crucial pillar for ensuring a free and open Indo-Pacific in the 21st century. As Sid mentioned, we saw several high-level touch points last year, including the state visit, the president's travel to the G20, launching of ISET, and a very productive 2+2 ministerial in November. And these engagements advanced initiatives across a range of sectors, including defense, space, clean energy, advanced telecommunications, and education. In a general sense, our exchange of global and strategic issues has never been deeper or more substantive than it is today, which is a testament to the close partnership at all levels of our government. Today I'll share a few reflections on how much the defense partnership in particular has evolved. I had the opportunity to serve in the Defense Attaché Office at our embassy in Delhi from 2019 to 2022. It was an interesting and rewarding experience to see our level of defense cooperation with India accelerate even amid the challenges that the pandemic posed. At the time, India was standing up a chief of defense staff and moving its military toward a more joint structure, all while both of our countries were dealing with this pretty serious geopolitical developments that were occurring as the pandemic was causing domestic challenges. It was during this time that we made immense progress toward enhancing our logistics cooperation and deepening information sharing. We saw an unprecedented pace of interaction at all levels between our two defense systems, from the Pentagon to combatant commands like Indo-Pagon and CENTCOM to our theater-level component commands like PAC-Fleet. And if you look at the defense announcements and the joint statements from the official state visit last year and the last 3 2+2 ministerials, you see a clear, compelling story about the growing trust both sides have in this defense partnership. Liaison officer positions at combatant commands, Indian membership in CMF, our first trilateral exercise, Tiger Triumph, in 2019, advanced defense domain dialogue on space, cyber, and AI, the potential GE engine co-production deal, signing of the BECA to support exchanges of geospatial information, and efforts toward expanding our cooperation in MDA. At state, we're pleased to see a growing level of operational coordination between our militaries across all domain, and we're looking forward to the really promising opportunities we see to expand defense industrial cooperation. We have also seen a lot of bilateral engagement on defense trade, and as our governments and industries reach out to learn more about each other's regulatory systems, I think we've made some first steps toward clarifying requirements in our system and pushing back on some of the misconceptions about our export control system. The kind of initiatives that are on the agenda now would have surprised even the most optimistic of observers of the relationship 10 years ago. It was then when Vikram, when he was DASD, was doing the painstaking work of negotiating foundational defense agreements and starting the initial attempts toward defense industrial cooperation. And we're very much seeing the fruits of that labor pay off now, and this has greatly expanded the toolkit we have to cooperate in the Indo-Pacific.
Thank you. Ryan, thanks for the